The court hereby grants full custody to the father. Those 8 words shattered my world into a million pieces. My ex-husband, Derek Dawson, turned to smirk at me from across the courtroom, his perfectly tailored suit and expensive lawyer screaming the wealth that had bought him this moment. But what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had spent 14 months preparing for exactly this betrayal. And in my hands, I held the folder that would destroy him. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. I met Derek Dawson when I was 24 years old, fresh out of nursing school and working double shifts at St. Mary's Hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina. He was charming, successful, and came from old money, the kind of family that had buildings named after them and golf memberships that cost more than my annual salary. His parents, Victor and Margaret Dawson, made it clear from day one that I wasn't good enough for their son. I was just a nurse from a middle-class family. My father was a mechanic. My mother was a schoolteacher. We didn't have trust funds or summer homes or connections to senators. "She's after your money," Margaret told Derek at our engagement dinner, not even bothering to lower her voice. "Girls like her always are." Derek defended me then. He said he loved me. He said his parents would come around. He promised me a life full of happiness and security and partnership. He lied about everything. The first 3 years of our marriage were a carefully constructed illusion. Derek traveled constantly for his family's investment firm, leaving me alone in our massive house in Myers Park with nothing but silence for company. When our daughter Emma was born, I thought things would change. I thought he would want to be present, to be a father. Instead, he missed her birth because he was in Vegas with his college friends. He missed her first steps because he was at a conference in Miami. He missed her first words because he simply didn't come home that night. I raised Emma alone while married to a ghost who only appeared for family photos and holiday cards, the perfect image of a happy family that existed nowhere but on paper. When Emma was 4, I found the text messages. Her name was Brittany Collins. 26 years old. A paralegal at his family's law firm. The affair had been going on for 2 years, since before Emma could walk. The messages were explicit, detailed, and devastating. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was what Derek wrote about me. "My wife is so clueless. She actually thinks I love her. As soon as Emma's old enough, I'm going to take the kid and dump Megan like the trash she is. My parents already have a judge lined up. She won't get a dime." I read that message 17 times. Each time, another piece of my heart turned to stone. Most women would have confronted him immediately. Most women would have screamed, cried, thrown things, demanded a divorce. But I had grown up watching my mother navigate impossible situations with patience and strategy. She always said, "Megan, never react in anger. Anger makes you stupid. Plan in silence, and let your actions speak when the time is right." So I planned. For 14 months, I played the role of the oblivious wife. I smiled at family dinners. I attended charity galas on Derek's arm. I let Margaret Dawson look down her nose at me and nodded politely when Victor called me that nurse girl, to his country club friends. But behind the scenes, I was building a fortress of evidence. I hired a private investigator named Marcus Webb, a former FBI agent who specialized in high-asset divorce cases. He wasn't cheap, but I had been secretly saving money from every household budget Derek gave me. $50 here, $100 there. Over 3 years, I had accumulated $47,000 in a bank account Derek didn't know existed. Marcus documented everything. Every hotel room Derek booked for his business trips. Every expensive gift he bought for Brittany with marital assets. Every lie he told me while he was actually in her apartment 3 miles from our home. But that wasn't all. I discovered that Derek's perfect image was built on fraud. His family's investment firm had been skimming money from client accounts for years. Not enough to raise red flags, just a percentage point here, a fee there, but over a decade, it added up to $2.3 million in embezzlement. I had bank records, wire transfers, emails between Derek and his father discussing how to hide the money. Every single document was copied, verified, and stored in 3 separate locations. And then there was Brittany. When Marcus approached her with evidence of Derek's lies, including the fact that he had promised to marry her but had no intention of ever leaving his comfortable setup, she broke. She agreed to testify about everything. The affair. The financial crimes. The conversations where Derek openly admitted he planned to use his family's connections to steal custody and leave me with nothing. By the time Derek finally filed for divorce, claiming I was an unfit mother with mental instability, I had 847 pages of documentation, 312 hours of surveillance footage, and sworn testimony from the woman he thought was his secret weapon. He walked into that courtroom thinking he had already won. He had no idea he was walking into his own execution. The Dawson family had packed the gallery like it was a coronation. Victor sat in the front row with his arms crossed, radiating smug satisfaction. Margaret wore a cream-colored Chanel suit and pearls, occasionally glancing at me with undisguised contempt. Behind them sat a collection of cousins, aunts, and family friends, all present to witness my humiliation. Derek's lawyer, Harrison Blake, was one of the most expensive attorneys in the state. He had spent the past 3 hours painting me as an unstable, neglectful mother who had trapped his client into marriage and was now trying to extort him for money. My lawyer, a public defender I had deliberately chosen to make them underestimate me, sat quietly beside me, following the script we had rehearsed for weeks. Judge William Patterson reviewed the final documents and cleared his throat. Based on the evidence presented and the testimony of multiple character witnesses, this court finds that the best interests of the minor child, Emma Dawson, would be served by granting full custody to the father, Derek Dawson. The gallery erupted. Derek's family actually applauded. Margaret Dawson clapped her manicured hands together like she was at the opera. Victor nodded approvingly at his son. Derek turned to look at me, and the smirk on his face was everything I needed to see. Pure, unbridled arrogance. He thought he had won. He thought his money and connections had crushed me. Judge Patterson raised his gavel. Your Honor. My voice cut through the celebration like a blade. The courtroom fell silent. Your Honor, before you finalize this ruling, I have additional evidence to submit. Harrison Blake shot to his feet. Objection, Your Honor. The evidence phase is closed. This is a desperate attempt to. I have 14 months of surveillance footage, I continued, my voice steady and clear. Bank records documenting financial fraud. And sworn testimony from Mr. Dawson's girlfriend detailing his plans to commit perjury in this very courtroom. The word girlfriend landed like a bomb. The whispers in the gallery became a roar. Derek's smirk vanished. For the first time since I had known him, I saw fear in his eyes. Judge Patterson held up his hand for silence. His eyes met mine, and I saw something shift in his expression, curiosity replacing the dismissiveness that had been there all morning. Mrs. Dawson, you understand that introducing evidence at this stage is highly irregular? I do, Your Honor. But I also understand that this court's primary concern is the welfare of my daughter. And I have evidence that Mr. Dawson has committed federal crimes, suborned perjury, and created a documented plan to steal custody through fraud and family connections. I held up the folder. 3 inches thick. Heavy with the weight of 14 months of silent war. Your Honor, this is outrageous. Blake sputtered. My client is welcome to explain these bank records showing $2.3 million in embezzled funds, I interrupted, or these photographs of him entering Miss Brittany Collins' apartment 147 times over the past 14 months. Or this sworn affidavit from Miss Collins herself, detailing every conversation in which Mr. Dawson described his plan to, and I quote, dump Megan like the trash she is once he secured custody. Judge Patterson's face had gone completely still. He extended his hand. Give me that folder. I walked forward and placed it in his hands. The courtroom was so silent I could hear my own heartbeat. The judge opened the folder. He read the first page. Then the second. By the 5th page, his jaw had tightened. By the 10th, his hands were shaking with barely contained fury. He looked up at Derek, and his expression had transformed completely. Bailiff. The uniformed officer stepped forward. Do not let Mr. Dawson leave this courtroom. Derek shot to his feet. You can't do this. I have rights. My father knows the governor. Sit down, Mr. Dawson. Judge Patterson's voice was ice. Or I will have you restrained. Victor Dawson was standing now, his face purple with rage. This is a setup. This woman is lying. I'll have your job for this, Patterson. The judge turned to him slowly. Mr. Dawson, I see your name mentioned quite frequently in these financial documents. I suggest you sit down and contact your own attorney. You're going to need one. For the next 45 minutes, Judge Patterson reviewed the evidence. Every photograph. Every bank statement. Every damning word of Brittany's testimony. The courtroom watched in stunned silence as the Dawson family's empire of lies collapsed in real time. When he finally looked up, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. I am reversing my earlier ruling. Full custody of Emma Dawson is hereby granted to her mother, Megan Dawson. Furthermore, I am referring this evidence to the FBI for investigation of wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Mr. Derek Dawson, you are hereby remanded into custody pending federal charges. The bailiff moved toward Derek. He tried to run, actually tried to flee the courtroom, but 2 more officers blocked the door. You can't do this to me. Derek screamed as they handcuffed him. Do you know who I am? Do you know who my family is? I stood perfectly still, watching the man who had planned to destroy me being dragged away in handcuffs. Behind him, Margaret Dawson had collapsed into her seat, her perfect composure shattered. Victor was screaming at his lawyer, demanding action, threatening lawsuits, promising revenge. None of it mattered anymore. Judge Patterson turned to me. His voice softened. Mrs. Dawson, or should I say, Ms. Lawson, since I assume you'll be reclaiming your maiden name, I owe you an apology. The evidence presented against you was compelling, and I nearly made a terrible mistake. Your preparation and patience may have saved your daughter from a very dangerous situation. Thank you, Your Honor, I said quietly. I just wanted to protect my daughter. You did more than that. You exposed a criminal enterprise that has been operating in this community for years. The families those people defrauded will finally have justice because of you. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Derek was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The judge added an additional 2 years for perjury and attempting to use fabricated evidence to steal custody of his daughter. He would be 51 years old before he breathed free air again. Victor Dawson received 8 years for his role in the financial crimes. The investment firm was shut down, its assets seized to repay the victims of their fraud. The family's country club membership was revoked. Their charity board positions evaporated overnight. The Dawson name, once synonymous with old money and respectability, became a punchline. Margaret filed for divorce 3 months after Victor's sentencing. She moved to Florida and changed her name, desperate to escape the scandal. I heard she works at a department store now, selling perfume to tourists. The woman who once looked down on me for being just a nurse now stands on her feet for 8 hours a day, earning minimum wage plus commission. The divorce settlement awarded me the house, both cars, and 60% of the remaining marital assets, approximately $1.8 million after the federal seizures. Derek was also ordered to pay child support from whatever he earns in prison, which amounts to about $47 per month. I donated that $47 every month to a women's shelter. It felt appropriate. Brittany Collins testified at both trials and received immunity for her cooperation. The last I heard, she had moved to Seattle and was working as a legal secretary at a small firm that specialized in family law. She sent me a letter once, apologizing for her role in everything. I never responded. Some wounds don't require closure, they just require distance. As for Emma, she's now 7 years old and thriving. She doesn't remember much about her father, which is probably a blessing. I've told her that he made some bad choices and has to spend time away because of them. When she's older, I'll tell her the full truth. But for now, she just knows that mommy loves her and will always protect her. I went back to nursing after the trials ended. Not because I needed the money, but because I needed the purpose. Every shift at St. Mary's reminds me of who I was before Derek Dawson tried to redefine my worth. I'm still that girl from a middle-class family. My father is still a mechanic. My mother is still a teacher. And I am still, proudly, just a nurse. But I'm also the woman who brought down an empire with nothing but patience, preparation, and the refusal to be underestimated. Derek writes to Emma sometimes. Letters from federal prison, filled with apologies and promises to be a better father when he gets out. I read them before deciding whether to share them with her. Most go straight into the fireplace. The few that seem genuine, I save. Maybe someday she'll want to read them. Maybe she won't. Last month, on the anniversary of the trial, I took Emma to the beach. We built sandcastles and collected shells and watched the waves roll in. At sunset, she looked up at me with her father's eyes but her grandmother's smile, my mother's smile, and asked me a question. Mommy, are you happy? I pulled her close and watched the sun sink into the ocean, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Yes, baby. I really am. And for the first time in years, it was the truth. The Dawsons thought they could crush me because I was quiet. Because I was patient. Because I didn't fight back with screaming and drama and immediate retaliation. They mistook my silence for weakness. They didn't realize I was loading my weapon. My mother was right. Never react in anger. Anger makes you stupid. Plan in silence, and let your actions speak when the time is right. The time was right in that courtroom. And my actions spoke loud enough to echo through prison walls for the next 12 years.